Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this exciting presentation on the scientific breakthrough of athletic performance and rehab in the ever-growing world of BFR, blood flow resistance training. Many of you have heard of this or you've experienced it, but there's a lot of people on tonight that you're hearing about this for the first time. Well, let's talk to one of the foremost experts in the world, Chris Duffin. I'm going to bring him on here in about 20 seconds. You talk about strong. This guy's a world record holder in the squat, a Guinness record, multiple record holder. One of his most impressive, he's about a 230-pound guy, and he did a what's called sumo deadlift of 1,000 pounds. You talk about strong. And I've gotten to meet Chris and learn about his world. I'm going to bring him on tonight and unmute him. And he's going to share with you what he's experienced with BFR and kind of talk about those subjects on there. Chris, we're super excited to have you on tonight. Thanks for sharing your BFR experience with us.
Thanks, Mike. Looking forward to sharing those experiences. So, yeah, like Mike said, I'm the only person in history that's ever squatted and deadlifted 1,000 pounds for reps. Did 1,001 pounds for almost 3 reps with the deadlift for the Guinness World Record holder, and 1,001 pounds for 3 reps on the squat this last year, before finally taking my leave of those super heavy lifting at 43 years old. I also own a company that does a lot of coaching. One of the companies that I own does a lot of coaching within the strength training world. And so we work with a lot of clients remotely. And so the B3 bands work absolutely fabulous over, a clinical type band where it requires a lot of education and tools on managing it to ensure the safety of the product, where we can get those results with the B3 band. So I've been using blood flow restriction for quite some time myself, but never felt good about bringing a product out that we could sell and put our name behind because of those potential negative circumstances. And the B3 bands basically eliminate that, and I have the confidence of being able to get those in the market in people's hands and have them start seeing the benefit. So I'm going to talk about some of the protocols that I've used, and some of those are quite a bit different than maybe some people have experience with. But one of the base ones is really simple, and it's going to be the same approach a lot of people would implement in any sort of strength development world. And that has to do with managing a lot of the axial loads on the body. So our axial load is a force that's going basically top to bottom through the spine. So squatting and deadlifting heavy, it could be a lot of other movements. And so there's only so much that you can really tolerate before we start, having a breakdown. Also, axial loads significantly have a very significant impact on recovery over other type of loading. But there's all of the heavy loading is going to take its toll on some of the non-recuperative items in the body, joints and ligaments and things of that nature. So it's really be able to manage training at those high levels and reduce some of those negative stressors. So, in addition to doing a heavy strength-based workout, there will be another workout later in the week where we can increase the volume and get the positive effects of being in the gym, getting the growth hormone release, getting the blood flow, which is going to stimulate recovery as a whole and have a greater impact on those macro cycles and training. So very, very easy to have basically your really heavy strength day and then another lighter day focused on getting those volume. You could also we also implement that in a strategy of a post session. So maybe it's squatting really heavy as my core movement, but then able to actually hit those same tissues in a manner that's not going to take that load. So for example, for me, if I want to work on some posterior chain and I've got good morning as my selection, where I've got a bar on my back and I'm bending over doing a good morning, I would be training with over 500 pounds to complete sets of good mornings. That's going to take a significant toll in where when I wear the BFR bands, I might be doing this with 185 pounds for sets of 20 versus 550 pounds for a good morning. Obviously, you can see if I can get the same benefits or better benefits from doing that, it's going to have a huge carryover on my training. So it's been really instrumental in those areas, but which again, that's pretty common to have light day, heavy day, mixture of BFR and non-BFR. One of the unique ways that I've used these through the years is in the priming. So there is an impact on the neurological priming of the system that can be had. So on a squat day, when I was working up for my 1,000-pound for 3 squat, each of my sessions for several months were between 950 to 980 pounds and would typically average a total of 6 to 8 repetitions. So what you don't capture is all the warm-ups leading up to that. And so the amount of fatigue accumulation just in the warm-up process is additive on the whole cycle. And if I could limit that and put as much of my training within the window that I'm going to get those results, I've got it at the right intensity and the right volume based on where I'm at my training. And I can push that a little bit further because I'm not fatigued. I'm prepped and primed properly. So what I would do is use a little bit lighter pressure on the band, and at my 135 pounds, actually I use kilos, so about closer to 200 pounds, I would start with doing 5 sets of 20 which may sound like a lot, but understand the context of how much I'm squatting. That's a very substantially less load at under 200 pounds. 5 sets of 20 with 30 to 40 seconds rest. And after doing that, my system is primed. I'm ready, as well as everything's flushed and full. So I've been able to take all the food that I've had and the fluids and hydration and really fill out those muscle bellies, which is going to have a huge impact on training. So going in flat without the muscle bellies filled up, it's substantially going to reduce my ability to handle that weight effectively and greatly increase my potential for injury at that time. And that happens quite common when you've got low volume, high intensity training. So typically I'm doing doubles and triples, and I'm really not have the opportunity to flush and fill that even in my warm-up. So this warm-up accomplishes a couple things. It's one, physiologically preparing my muscles, filling everything out so that I've got great pressure and tension throughout the system, and as well as this neurological priming effect. So 5 sets of 20 with those BFR bands. And now, as I'm making those jumps, I can make quick, easy jumps. So I might jump straight from there to around 350 pounds for a couple reps, 500 pounds for a couple reps, 700 pounds for a couple reps, 850 pounds for a couple reps, low 900 for a single, and then right into my workout, versus sitting there and making jumps at 225, 300, 350, 405, all the way up, which would be an incredibly fatiguing and taxing workout. And it would actually reduce the amount of weight or volume, intensity, that I would be able to handle, and again, if I'm not training in those numbers that I need to, it's going to affect the overall training cycle that I'm on and the overall goals. If, the target is a load of 950, 955 pounds for 8 repetitions, that workout. Well, if I burnt myself up in those initial warm-ups, I might only be good for two sets. And now I've only got 6 reps. And that seems like minor, but it's a really major impact. Or I might have only been able to accomplish it at 940 pounds. And I know exactly the impact that this has because I monitor every set with a velocity device. And I know, based on my training, the exact velocity of percentage that I should be hitting. And so if I'm overly fatigued, I have to reduce the weight to be able to accomplish that, or not be able to finish my last set. So those would really play a role. So this is something that, you know, people don't think about as much, is actually using this as a preparatory tool for strength and athletic development to minimize the actual load and input on the system and get those physiological and neurological benefits. And it could be pre-game, could be pre-meet, any of these aspects it works. The other thing I did is my training was highly infrequent at those times, so I wasn't doing full body training. I had developed all the qualities that I had. So this was 4 years of preparation, and the final training was over 11 months leading into this. It was very specific, planned out leading into this event, working a periodized plan of movements to establish the qualities that I wanted leading into this last cycle. And so it minimized the fact of me needing to do any other additional work that was just solely focused on squatting only at this period of time. Unfortunately, when we talk about those physiological benefits, I talked about being filled out and ready to train. If you're only training and squatting heavy once a week, you're not going to be carrying those, you're not going to be walking around with those full muscle bellies. You're not going to be able to walk into that workout and hit it at your max if you had been training consistently all the time and filled out, but you would be carrying way more fatigue if you're training everything all the time. So this was the goal of the training, was getting me to a point where I was minimizing the fatigue of those other factors. Now, how do I accomplish that? I would use the same I'd do a BFR workout 2 days in a row right before the squat training. So again, I'm going to be around 150 to low 200, just under 200 pounds. And I would come in and I would do 3 sets of 20 reps, 30 seconds rest between, 30 to 40 seconds, flexing the muscle about 30 to 40 times in those 30 seconds. Then take a 3-4 minute break, and then repeat the cycle again for a total of twice through the circuit, 6 sets, 20 reps. And I do that twice in those few days, not fatiguing at all. I'm still also enhancing the benefits of recovery, getting that training effect, growth hormone release, all those sorts of things. But I'm really filling out the body, but not fatiguing it going into those heavier days. So very different approach of really pushing the BFR to get into a fatigue. I'm actually doing it for some physiological benefits, but not pushing into that area that I would with my workout to prep me. So what the value here is, what you could do with somebody that's taken a significant amount of time off, or an athlete that's come out of, maybe a rehab process where he was working with somebody that minimized the amount of training, and you don't have that athlete prep to jump into something. Maybe there was an off season or a spring break or whatever it is, and the athlete's coming back, and it's like, now you can spend a couple days, really fill out the whole body, get them ready to get into that training, get the best results, and also minimize again those potentiation of any injury. So a really valuable approach that's quite different. Another one, this is based off of some work from Dr. Mario Novo, who is a great educator in the BFR world as well, was post-session for recovery. So after a post-heavy session, I would do BFR yet again. So I've done my active preparatory before the squat for the priming. Now post-session, I'd run up the bands very heavy in pressure, okay? Anybody that's worked in the clinical, it'd be more of like an 80% of occlusion pressure. So the squat bands for me would actually be pushing, like 450 PSI for mercury, where maybe I'm training with 350 normally, okay? So it's about a 20% increase over where you normally would be. Immediately post-session, just finished my last squat. I'd lay down on the floor. I'd put the bands on at this 20% higher pressure than I normally run, along with an E-stem. So I use the Mark Pro for 5 minutes, then 60 seconds of letting the pressure off, and then 5 minutes again. This cycle will be repeated 3 times, which gives you an 18 minutes post, and it significantly enhanced recovery from these sessions when I implemented this protocol from Dr. Mario Novo. So Here's a lot of different ways that are very outside. And this is what I love about BFR is the flexibility that you can have and the benefits that you can get from using the bands.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate, Chris, you being on. And I think what's interesting is, you know, these things you all talk about, the starter workout, the finisher, the heavy days, the light days. This can be, you know, this can be a mom that's just getting off the couch can implement this, and this is elite level athletes. So all these all these wonderful protocols that you've developed and proven apply across the board. We certainly appreciate you being on. Thanks, Chris.